Hello. In October of 2024, I was a keynote speaker at the OSTEM conference in Portland, Oregon. It was a fantastic time, everybody was lovely, and I got to be on stage in front of several hundred people who would laugh every time I'd said something funny, which is frankly a dream come true because I have an intense need for approval that makes me crave attention from other people. The talk I gave was a very broad talk about science communication on TikTok in general, but in covering that, I also talked about plagiarism and, of course, misinformation. Plagiarism was easy. I know how that sounds. I referenced the Somerton scale created by Tomska Ridgewell because it nicely explains the huge spectrum that exists when two works appear to be copying each other. Now, I don't want to say that that video is a required prerequisite for this one, but it is a very, very good video, and you should absolutely go watch it at some point if you've not already seen it. So, I did a number 3 from the Somerton scale, which is taking inspiration. I made a similar scale with a similar format, but this one is about misinformation. That is what this video is about. As a quick preamble about this scale, the Somerton scale largely takes would-be plagiarists' intentions into account. Are they copying a work maliciously, or are they subconsciously remembering an older work and copying that, etc.? So I've modeled the Wakefield scale of misinformation in much the same way. It is not about how incorrect or harmful the misinformation itself is, it's about the misinformation spreader's intentions. Saying petting a cat cures cancer does a lot more real-world harm than saying this cat is orange, but someone who genuinely believes that cats cure cancer would rank a lot lower on this scale than me right now, who is consciously and knowingly telling you that this cat is orange when clearly he is blue. In the same way, if I say there are 3 canon Kingdom Hearts games, that is straight up incorrect. Saying there are 11 canon Kingdom Hearts games is slightly correct because yes, there are 11 playable experiences, but the most correct thing would be to say that it depends on how you count, because there are multiple ports and re-releases for almost every original. However, the correctness does not really matter for the purpose of this scale unless you take my intention into account while saying those things. This scale isn't here to excuse bad information, it's here to help us understand how it spreads, help us spot it in the wild, and help us as communicators stop doing it on accident. So you can play through the original Kingdom Hearts experience 4 times and those might be all separate canons. 0 is no misinformation. All the information is good, no ethical qualms here. You could, of course, make the argument that actually a perfect 0 is impossible. We live in a post-truth society, and the nature of communication means that in traveling from sender to receiver, some information will always be lost. And if you put a moral weight on accurate communication, it means that you have the potential to be unintentionally spreading some misinformation at all times, which is unethical, meaning you need to never interact with anyone ever again. You could make that argument, but I am not. 0 means good enough, otherwise society collapses. Moving on. Now, 1, 2, and 3 aren't really misinformation so much as they are things that happen. Number 1 is simplification for understanding, and in a way, simplification is necessary to explaining any complicated topic to someone. My go-to example for this is this model of an atom.
This is school. You tried to get me back into school.
This is not what an atom looks like. It is not even close. Atoms do not look like a solar system. I'd say they're closer to this, but this isn't actually what they look like either because those balloons aren't real. They're only trying to predict where electrons are more likely to hang out. I actually really like this graphic because it kind of gets at that concept a little better than balloons do, but I am completely off track. Okay, I need to back up. Atoms have a nucleus which is positively charged. Atoms also have electrons which are negatively charged and hang out around the nucleus at different energy levels. When an electron absorbs energy from somewhere outside, this could be from something as simple as fire, the electron goes into what is called an excited state and jumps up to a different step of these energy levels. Eventually, it'll release that energy and take a step back down. And this energy that gets released does so in the form of light that shows up as different colors depending on which step the electron was going down. Scientists can use this whole process to figure out the composition of different materials and also to create the pretty colors you see in fireworks. Now imagine I tried to explain that to you with this graphic instead. I'm gonna be honest, I don't don't even know how I do that. This model of an atom is a simplification of reality, but it is still used in textbooks because it is easier to use to explain certain concepts to people encountering them for the first time. You can, of course, oversimplify to the point of misinformation, but remember, we're focusing on intentionality here. Oversimplifying is a tactic that can be used for entries further up on this list. Number 2 is assuming prior knowledge. You assume somebody has necessary context for the thing you are talking about, and they do not, and as a result, they misunderstand you. You know the IPCC? They are the important United Nations group that publishes the huge climate science reports every so often. If you see a bunch of headlines about some climate report that's making news, that's like, hey guys, we ran the models again, and the data now says that if we don't stop emitting CO2 by yesterday, the dolphins are gonna come out of the ocean and take our coastal cities by force. That is the IPCC. The IPCC has standard methods for communicating certainty. So saying it is very unlikely that by this time next year, the mayor of Miami will be a marine mammal means that the likelihood is somewhere between 0 and 10%. So according to the IPCC, here are the conversions between the words they use in context and what percentage likelihood they mean by those terms. Now, the problem is that the way the general public understands these words doesn't necessarily match up with these numbers. These bottom 2 bars are how an everyday person interprets probability when they hear each of these words. And there are 2 different ones because the researchers just used 2 different ways of doing statistics to come up with the cutoff points for each word. But you can see how this creates problems. The IPCC would only say something is likely to happen if it's anywhere between 60 and 100%, but that is a huge discrepancy with how people intuitively use those words. There could be a 90% chance Pitbull is living under aquatic rule next summer, and he does not take that warning seriously because he is out here thinking there is only a 40% chance. Real fast. Side note, people thinking that 40% is likely is bonkers to me personally. Assuming prior knowledge as a whole is more of a miscommunication than misinformation. We assume people will know what we mean by likely, but that is not always the case. That being said, it's helpful to understand who you are trying to reach and who your audience is. That way you can tailor your content to your audience's level of knowledge. Over at SciShow a few months ago, we did a video about how trees are mostly dead and that causes problems for archaeologists. Trees are mostly dead is something that is surprising for people who know that trees are generally considered alive, which is most adults. But when this episode was initially pitched, our associate producer McKenna went,
"The other day I told a bunch of kindergartners that I teach that trees are alive. Do I need to tell them they're dead actually? I'm scared that might scar them for life."
And the response was, no, do not tell the kindergartners the trees are dead. Trees are alive. The fact that the heartwood inside of trees is dead is a level of complexity that kindergartners do not have the context for, and that is fine. Number 3 is assuming full participation or assuming full viewership. This is when you assume people will engage with everything you are saying, more specifically, anything other than just the very beginning of it. It's a sad truth as an online creator that most people will not watch the entirety of your thing. Hell, we are only on number 3, and I bet less than 50% of the people who clicked on this video even made it here, so congrats. This is a retention graph from a video that I posted to TikTok. YouTube has these too. They are a visual representation of how far people made it into your video before they stop watching. This video was 60 seconds total, and you can see that only 28% of the people watching this 1-minute video made it to the 59-second mark.
That's not actually that bad.
This is not an uncommon sight. What this means for online creators is that anything you say at the beginning of your video or podcast or article or blue sky thread, I don't know how that site works, might be all the information someone gets about what you're saying. If you are withholding information until the end of your work, there is a good chance people will not see it. I actually used to have assuming prior knowledge and assuming full participation flipped in order, but assuming full participation feels slightly easier to avoid. Like, don't talk about how dandruff isn't real and is a giant conspiracy from Big Shampoo for 40 minutes, and then at the 41st and final minute go, just kidding, I made all that up. Or, like, you can write out the conversions for what each of your certainty words means, but if you put it in a little tiny footnote, no one is gonna see that IPCC. Are you kidding me? Though how much responsibility you want to take for this as a communicator is up to you. I am not your dad. Here is where we start to shift to, for lack of a better word, lazy mistakes. Number 4 is misspeaking, or to put it another way, like a brain fart. Yeah, so I originally had a different example here, but this video has been in post-production for several months at this point, and in that time I started a finance podcast with my partner Zach, and then went on hiatus from that podcast, and we literally do misspeaking several times per episode.
I would say even though, the prevailing wage was $17, that quickly became $22 here, which meant the Baker's Act made the prevailing wage $22. So Davis-Bacon Act. I'm just going to call it the Bacon Act because that's definitely the better, easier one to remember, right?
It's yummy.
It is yummy.
Yeah, it's just saying the wrong thing by accident. I do this all the time, as do a lot of people, and it's relatively excusable, especially for in-person communication and some things that happen live. But for anything where you have a bit of time before you publish, you should be rereading or rewatching your work, in which case, hopefully, you would catch this. Number 5 is misremembering. You knew the correct fact at one point, but something has happened in your recall and you get the fact wrong. It is really easy for someone to say they misremembered something as an excuse when they are caught in a lie. So please forgive me for talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson, because this is the best example I can find where I don't think the individual is just lying. Back in 2014, Tyson was the science communicator du jour, and in many lectures he would include a specific George W. Bush quote. Our God is the God who named the stars. He used this quote to talk about religious exclusion. Specifically, he implied that the quote was part of a post-9/11 thing about we versus they and Christianity as the default American religion. Except Bush never really said that in the way Tyson remembered. The quote actually came from an earlier speech well before 9/11, and in context, it reads as a general reflection on wonder and faith. The thing that drives me bonkers about this is that you are a scientist, Neil. You know that you have to double check things, and you're not going to double check a quote? Those are hard to remember. Now, the antidote to number 5 we will talk about in a second, because it is the same as the antidote to number 6, which is overconfidence. This is just being wrong. Like, for whatever reason, you think that you are saying something correct, and you are not. You are wrong. If you search for pictures of taste buds on the internet, you will likely see this diagram. It is wrong. It's based on information from a German paper from 1901 that said that these areas had slightly better ability to taste those flavors, but it was not meant to be an all or nothing thing. And then it got mistranslated and was made into something like this diagram, and then it was in textbooks everywhere. But it is wrong. We have decades of research saying that this is wrong, and yet that still does not stop people from being confidently wrong about it and uploading diagrams of it as if it were the truth. Especially to like Getty Images, where people will just then use that in their blog post or whatever, and they don't double check it. My favorite is when you see one with umami, because those didn't show up on these diagrams until the 90s, when it started gaining traction as its own independent flavor in the West, and I guess people just went, okay, I'll plop it in the middle because that's where the open spot is. When, like, if you're following the science enough to know about the flavor we just found the taste receptors for, how do you not know the diagram is not real? People remember seeing this diagram in the book The Magic School Bus inside the human body when they were 6 years old, and they never questioned it, and then they get to be overconfidently wrong about it for the rest of their lives. 4, 5, and 6 present the next little family grouping here. Like I said before, they are all usually preventable mistakes. The thing that distinguishes them is how much knowledge the speaker actually possesses and where in the recall process the flub happens. A lot of times when we talk about misinformation on the internet, we are talking about the numbers higher up on this list, when there is a lot of intentionality and deceit involved. But I think we might underestimate the misinformation coming from this little family chunk, specifically 5 and 6, especially on more casual social media sites. I can remember a cool fact, go, hey, I bet my followers would love to hear this, whip out my phone, film a TikTok, and hit post. And if that thing was interesting enough, it takes off. If the fact I remembered was flat out wrong, okay, what do you expect me to do? Fact check an extremely casual TikTok before I hit post? Yes, I do. The way to avoid number 5 and 6 is by fact-checking things before you post them. Does everybody need to literally cite their sources like your 11th grade research paper on how James Buchanan was the gayest president? Not necessarily. Maybe you just quickly Google something to confirm the thing you are sharing for your own knowledge before you share it. Hi, we will get to you in a second. While everything previously on this list could be isolated to a single event, starting from 7 onwards is where we start to see patterns of behavior. 7 is reckless endangerment. You really, genuinely believe that the thing you are sharing is true, but it is not, and people keep telling you that you are wrong, and you keep not listening to them and doubling down. Confirmation bias, you can get back in here now. Yay! People on TikTok are saying, or have been saying, that you don't need sunscreen, or even worse, that sunscreen itself causes cancer. Apparently, this took off so much that now 1 in 7 American adults under 35 believes using sunscreen daily is more harmful than direct sun exposure. First, it isn't. Oh my God, please wear sunscreen, please. Second, I suspect that people spreading this misinformation actually believe it. Mostly because sunscreen, frankly, sucks. It is inconvenient, it makes you feel slimy and gross. Depending on the kind you use, it can make you break out, and if you use the spray kind, it is so cold. As a kid who grew up in Florida, for whom sunscreen was a sensory hell, there were legitimately times I told my mom I did not want to go to the beach or to the pool because I did not want to have to put on sunscreen. She did convince me to go anyway, and I did have fun every time, thank you Mom, but it was enough of a barrier in my brain to make me not want to go do this thing that I knew was fun. So if these adults who are responsible for putting sunscreen on themselves are able to find a few scraps of evidence that say, actually, you are scientifically justified in not wanting to do this thing that is inconvenient and that you hate, they're going to latch on to it. I suspect that a lot of the anti-masking sentiment from peak COVID times comes from a similar place. Checking that you're not doing a number 7 is tough. The way to avoid it is the same way you avoid confirmation bias. Check out multiple sources, incorporate feedback, and reevaluate as necessary. Think about how believing what you believe benefits you personally. Ask yourself what kind of evidence would be needed to change your mind. This is a lot of metacognition, and it is not an easy thing to do. How to spot this happening in the wild? That is a different story. We are going to play a little game. I am going to show pictures of people who get regularly interviewed for the iconic History Channel series Ancient Aliens, and we're going to sort them into whether they actually believe the thing that they are saying. I'll be honest, I have not watched much of Ancient Aliens since maybe 2014, and so I did not know that A, they were still making new episodes in this, the year of our Lord 2025, and 2, I did not realize that people like well-respected science communicator and physicist Michio Kaku have been on the show. I am going to put him in the does not care pile, not because I think that he doesn't care about the things that he's saying, but because I do not think he cares about whether or not aliens have been here in the past. I also don't know what he said on the show. It could have just been physics things, it could have been alien things. This has thrown me for a loop a little bit. That being said, for the other people that I have to go through, I do not necessarily know what they are saying on the show. This is simply an exercise of whether or not they think aliens have visited human Earth in the past, because the show kind of makes it seem like everybody who's on the show thinks that no matter what it is they're saying, because that's how editing works. Okay, so next we have Linda Moulton Howe. I do remember her like being a supporter of ancient alien theory, and I also remember her like being one of the few women in that scene. I am going to put her in the aliens pile because it vibes. She seems enthusiastic. Next we have George Norrie. I vaguely remember this guy as well. He's giving me like sci-fi writer what if scenarios, and so that makes me think he likes this as a thought experiment and not necessarily as something he believes, and so he is going in the does not care pile. Next we have Nick Pope, who is described as an author, journalist, and TV personality. I don't know why I'm saying this. I think he buys it. Next up is Andrew Collins. He does not buy it. I don't know why. I'm just looking at him. I don't trust anything. I don't trust it. This man is not telling me what he thinks is the truth. I know nothing about him personally. I don't remember watching any episodes with him in it. He could be a very nice man. This is one big joke. Next up is Jason Martell. For over 15 years, Mr. Martell has been one of the leading researchers and lecturers specializing in ancient civilization technologies. Oh, he's a Baghdad battery guy. He believes it. People who are into the Baghdad battery believe it. He's into aliens. Next is Eric von Daniken. Oh god. Okay. This guy's the guy who came up with basically the guy who came up with and popularized ancient alien theory, which apparently, I have not read it. Apparently his original book is like super eugenicsy. A lot of ancient alien stuff is super eugenicsy, and it can be traced back to this guy. So that's not good. I do think he believes it though. He believes it, and like I am so smart, I came up with this, look at me, I have no reason to question my own thoughts because I am so smart way, which is absolutely the cognitive bias thing. Next up is Jonathan Young. I don't know. This guy seems to be more of like a folklore guy and not a specifically ancient aliens guy, so they might just have him on to be like yeah, this is a story that existed, in which case he does not care about the aliens. He cares about it for another reason, which is why he's going in the does not care pile. Next is William Henry. I don't remember this guy at all. At least some of these people, I feel like I've at least seen them. I don't think I've ever seen this man's face before. Maybe it's because I've never seen him talk before, but I don't trust him. Again, this is purely on vibes. This man could be very nice. I'm putting him in does not care. Next is David Childress. I remember this guy. He's in like most of them. Oh, he's known as the real life Indiana Jones? Could have had me fooled. Oh, he's a recognized expert not only on ancient civilizations and technology, but also on free energy, anti-gravity, and UFOs. He buys it. Here he goes into aliens. And now who you've all been waiting for, Giorgio Tsoukalos. When I host for SciShow and there's an episode that's really, really cool, you get this kind of like enthusiasm because you are so excited about the thing that you are talking about. And it like, I see it in this man when he talks about ancient aliens. And so I really do think this man thinks it's all real. You go into the aliens pile. No, you are the aliens pile. You're the entire aliens pile. Okay, so everybody in this actually believes it pile, they are doing a number 7, reckless endangerment. Everybody in the here for the memes pile is doing number 8, uninterested in truth. Now, obviously, I was sorting people based on vibes. I am not a mind reader. I do not know to what extent each of those humans thinks that aliens caused the Black Death. Yes, that is a real thing they once said on the show. And as such, it can be hard to tell the difference between someone who genuinely believes what they are saying and someone who just doesn't care. If you've made it this far into the video, I hope I don't need to give you advice on how to avoid doing these anymore. You should be interested in truth. If you aren't, I don't think I can help you. My advice would be see a therapist, I guess. Number 9, deliberate misinformation, is lying.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
You know the thing that you're saying is wrong, and you want other people to think it is true. While you can think of number 8 as content for content's sake, number 9 usually belies some sort of ulterior motive. It's usually money.
We've made it possible to run comprehensive laboratory tests from a tiny sample or a few drops of blood.
The question has always been, do you take steroids? Do you take PEDs? The answer to that is no.
November or December of this year, we should be able to go from, all the way from a parking lot in California to a parking lot in New York. No controls touched at any point during the entire journey.
Yeah, lying. Don't do it. And here is my incredibly hot take. Influencers who don't disclose their sponsored content belong in this category. It is a lie of omission, which is lying. 10 is deliberate disinformation, and at this point we are no longer operating on the scale of individual people. These are large, concerted efforts meant to influence the public's understanding of a topic, usually for someone's political gain. That someone could be a country, or an industry, or a political movement. And notice I said that they're meant to influence public understanding, not that they're necessarily trying to convince the public. That might be true for some disinformation campaigns.
There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
But in general, all that is required for the further of political interests is that doubt is sown. Once upon a time, there was an industry. It was discovered that what the industry was doing was generally bad for society. Society went, hey, maybe we should do something about this. But the industry wanted to keep making money for as long as possible. And so, they lied. First, the industry said, our product isn't harmful. And that bought some time as society bickered. The industry kept making money. And then a little later, the industry said, well, the science is out on whether our product is harmful. It may be or it may not be. We need more information. Meanwhile, the industry gave some of their money to others who repeated their lies. They harassed people who tried to tell the truth, and they used red tape to slow down society's actions. Journalists wanted to tell the truth, but then the industry said, wait, you need to get both sides. Both sides were not equal. One side was truth, the other was lies. Eventually, though, evidence became overwhelming. Any reasonable society could realize the industry was, in fact, harmful. The industry said, society, you are so reasonable. You have the ability to decide for yourself if our product is harmful, and you have the freedom to use it anyway. It would be such a shame if that were taken away. I am sure some of you see where I'm going with this. And which industry am I talking about? Surprise! It's both the tobacco and the fossil fuel industries. They use this exact same playbook. I gotcha! But actually, boom, surprise number 2. It's all of these industries. Take your pick. A lot of times it's the same public relations firms and the same sketchy paid-for scientific experts working for each of these groups and using the same playbook every single time. I am also not the first person to talk about this. I put some resources in the description, and if you can find it, both the book and documentary Merchants of Doubt do a great job of breaking this down. A lot of these resources focus on how specifically industries or corporations use this playbook, but these tactics can be and are used by anybody. Hate groups who want to target a minority group, a celebrity who is trying to salvage their reputation, governments. I feel like I should have more to say about number 10, but I don't. It's a thing that happens. It's hard to spot. It shapes a lot of our political discussion in the current day, and it sucks. But this is why number 7, reckless endangerment, is such a scary place to be. You can genuinely believe something that is the result of a deliberate disinformation campaign and share that disinformation because it aligns with your cognitive biases. I've been giving examples that mostly come from the political right because, to be honest, those are not hard to find. But it comes from the left as well, and if I don't share a left-leaning example of misinformation, I will be indulging in my own cognitive biases, which is not fair if I am asking you all not to do that. So, story time, here's one I fell for. Here are 3 biases that I know I carry. 1, I tend to trust information from content creators that I like. 2, I think big corporations are, as a general rule, evil and pursue profit over literally anything else. 3, I don't know anything about finance outside of things my partner has taught me and watching the movie The Big Short. I count not knowing things as a type of bias. So because of the finance podcast I previously mentioned, I have learned more about finance in the past 6 weeks than I have in the previous 30 years of my life. For example, did you know that finance is not a blanket term meaning money? Because I know that now. So I am aware that this content creators one is not great. But if you just reached for the keyboard to write a comment about how I'm so awful and you don't do that, come on now. Yes, you do. If you don't acknowledge that you do that at least sometimes, that means you have no active process to question information as it comes to you, and that means you extra do that, actually. Now, the corporations one, even upon examination, I do think this is mostly true, but the bias means that I am less likely to question information that lines up with it. And because I don't know anything about finance, I am actually less able to question things that sound right to me about those corporations I mentioned previously. So, BlackRock. Have you heard that this investment firm owns like 80 million single-family homes in the United States and that they are a big player in the housing crisis and why rents are so high? Well, I did, and I believed it for a very long time. They don't. BlackRock does not buy houses. They do trade in mortgage-backed securities, which is when you bundle a bunch of mortgages up and like use that to do finance stuff. It's the thing they shorted in The Big Short, trading on the debt. Not literal houses. And some of the funds they manage include real estate stuff like big apartment complexes, but those are not single family homes. But all that's been from a press release from the horse's mouth. They're going to spin that in their favor. So what else can we find? The Associated Press. Okay, we love them. Independent journalism. They corroborate all of that, of course they do. Aha! BlackRock does own shares in a company that does own houses. Invitation Homes. And let's see how many shares they own. 10% of that company. So it's like they own 10% of 80,000 houses, which is still not a house. And to be fair, there are actually more and more investors who are not BlackRock buying up single-family homes. How did this rumor even get started about BlackRock specifically? Wait a minute, is it backdoor anti-Semitism?
Content warning for anti-Semitism. Skip to the timestamp if you don't want to see it, okay?
Yes, it is in fact backdoor anti-Semitism. This claim originated in 2021 with this really popular tweet. It cites a Wall Street Journal article, but that article only mentions BlackRock once, like sort of in passing, and is mostly talking about other institutional investors doing rental shenanigans in a few specific markets. This tweet was meant for an audience of, let's just say, QAnon adjacents. And the CEO of BlackRock and many of their higher-ups are Jewish. And this right-wing conspiracy crowd thinks that the globalists, which is often a coded word for Jewish people, are going to use DEI to create a new world order. I wish I was joking. Anyway, leftists caught wind of this myth a few months later, and because it looked like a critique of capitalism, they ran with it as well. Also, none of this is to say that BlackRock is a good company. It is just an exploration on why this specific factoid is an anti-Semitic myth. I am really ashamed that this factoid got stuck in my brain so hard. But the reason that it did is because it lined up with me thinking large corporations are evil, and a lot of content creators that I like would repeat it. I am not calling anybody out specifically because frankly, I do not remember who said it. I don't think I've ever repeated this factoid in any content I've made, though I've definitely shared it in casual conversations with people as an example of like, LOL, capitalism bad, in which case, I was doing a 6 at minimum and a 7 if I was actively arguing with someone. That someone is my partner. Sorry, Zach. Look, I am not asking you to examine your cognitive biases and find sources before you share information because I think you're stupid. I am asking you to do this because it is so easy to fall into these traps and pull a 7. Don't pull a 7. So I want to end on a hopeful note because I don't know, ending one on downer sucks. I want to help you overcome your biases more often. If you remember earlier, I said, it is not an easy thing to do. I was not lying. It still isn't easy, but there are studies that show debiasing training does a lot to help. A lot of times these are specialized workshops, but it can even just be like having bias checking modeled for you by people who know how to do it and learning through observation. So I'm pretty sure what we all just did together counts. I am going to leave you with one last video recommendation. It's Unbiasing Your Biases by Intelligent Intelligence Advanced Research Projects activity. It sounds dry, but it isn't. It's got some jokes in there. It's a good watch, I promise. One study that used this exact video saw people be about 20% less biased after watching it, both immediately after and 2 months later. It's more geared toward decision making, but I do not think it will hurt you. So here's a head start. Thank you so much for watching this. This video has been a lot of work. If you count when I first started working on my OSTEM presentation, it means I've been working on this video for a year. So I'm really glad it's like out into the world finally. If you made it this far, I assume that means that you liked the video. And so you can say thank you to me by, first of all, subscribing to this channel. If I've reached 500 subscribers by the time you are watching this, you can hit hype on this video. And if you really want to say extra thank you, you can do the buy me a coffee thing. I'll be honest, I would feel a little weird about doing a Patreon considering I post something maybe once every year and a half at my current pace. I would like to do more. I have many ideas. My goal is to have one more video posted to this channel by the end of the year. So if you are watching this in January 2026 and there is not another video between this one and then, I failed and you should yell at me. Thank you, bye!